Paranormal. That cannot be explained by scientific methods.
Told of a creature that was 6.5 to 7 feet tall.
The CIA ran secret mind control experiments.
It's a tale of a creature that's been seen by many, but believed by few.
And experts say there have been reported sightings of paranormal activity.
And there was this creature, and it ran down this hill.
They say something was flying over their house, and they have no idea what it was.
How the world's most powerful individuals are actually shape-shifting reptilians.
My scariest ghost hunting experience.
Jason and JV.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. Who want it now?
Beyond reality. Radio.
It's Wednesday on the West, Thursday on the East. Many of you are stuck somewhere in between. Welcome to Beyond Reality Radio with myself, Jason Hawes, and the always awesome J.V. Johnson.
I'm not going to say that there's necessarily a government conspiracy. I'm not going to say that.
But there is a government conspiracy.
But, you know, we joke about it often. But whenever, let me put it this way. Frequently, when we're talking about the topic of UFOs, we get some kind of weird technical interruption to our setup, right? And it's either phone lines go dead, or as in last night's case, the internet went completely out, which we rely on to deliver the show to Westwood One.
Well, and it's a direct feed to them too, which is even stranger. Yeah. So it's one of the. And initially, I thought it was me. I'm sending you a text. I'm like, I'm lost. I'm gone. And then you called me.
Yeah, everything completely went out, and it forced the show to go off the air live, and then a backup show had to play. But it only seems to happen when we're talking about UFOs.
Well, stop saying that word.
I know, and I'm going to knock on wood right now because I don't want it to happen tonight. He is a distinguished professor of history. He's also an author. He's written a book called Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. And we had him on the show just about a month ago. He was on a night where we had two guests, and both of those guests, the other one was Terry Lovelace, both of them had information and stories that were just too much to fit into an hour. We've had Terry back on already, and now it's Bruce's turn to come back on. He's had 34 different paranormal experiences himself.
Well, and it started at the age of 4. Now, I have a hard time remembering last week, let alone age 4.
Me too.
So I can't.
But I suppose if you have an experience like that, it probably sticks with you at that age or any age. And he'll tell us exactly what that experience was. But he lectures. He's actually starting a college course this fall, and he's going to be doing a ghost lecture on October 30th. Great day to be doing that. People are thinking about it.
Now, make sure you tune in tomorrow because we've got our good friend Rebecca Foster. We're going to be doing readings with Rebecca, and we do that once a month, every month. So, and she's great. You're going to want to call in early. The phone lines usually get jam-packed, but it should be a great night.
Yeah, the phone lines will get very, very busy with Rebecca on tomorrow night, and we will let you know when to start calling, but we start taking those calls. Frequently, we don't open the phone lines up until the second hour of the program, but when we have Rebecca on, we open them essentially right away, and the sooner you place those phone calls tomorrow night, the better you're going to be, or the better chance you'll have to get on with Rebecca, because the phones will be very, very busy.
Yes, they will. So make sure you do that early. Hey, and also, if you download the show from iTunes or anywhere else, do us a favor and just rate it for us. It helps push it forward, makes it easier for people to find, and that's what it's all about.
A couple neat things coming up next week, just to give us a bit of a preview of guests. We're going to be talking about the Final Words Project. which is a compilation of near-death and at-death experiences. We've had guests on about that particular effort before. I don't think Dr. Raymond Moody was the guest we had on the last time that spoke about this particular topic. I think it was somebody else. Do you remember, Jay? I don't remember specifically.
It was a female.
That's what I remember. Yeah,
and and this is really interesting. Though we're talking with doctors and people who are really dealing with people at the end of their life, and or ones that have experienced near-death experiences. And it's just amazing to see a lot of these doctors who were so closed-minded to things within the paranormal, how they've really opened up. And we've dealt with so many, JV, that have really, since they've started getting involved in that aspect, have really opened up to the whole belief that there is something more after we finally close our eyes.
And you're right. They go into those professions with a very scientific approach to what life and death is, and their eyes are opened rather quickly. They see things that they can't explain, and they start to recognize that some of this stuff is just beyond our comprehension. And that turns their opinion around. We've had many healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, on the program who have either written books or shared stories about experiences they've had in a hospital room. I've had my own. I know you've had some, Jay.
Yeah.
These things are not to be dismissed. And, we get to talk about some of that next week.
And another thing we'll be talking about next week with Sarah Clancy, an author, we're going to be talking about the Black-Eyed Children, which is an extremely creepy thing. And if you haven't heard of them, look them up. Just know that there's a lot of mixed things online about it, but we're going to be talking about them and just, what do they mean when you're seen, when you see them, when they come knocking on your door, when they're asking to be let into your house? What does that mean, and should you?
Yeah, there's a lot of ominous stories and reports about these particular phenomena and whether or not they're harbingers of evil, whether if you let them into your home, if you've doomed yourself to some particular fate. There's a whole bunch, and we'll be talking about all that on that's next Wednesday night with Sarah Clancy.
Yeah. So, all right, on that note, we're going to take a quick break and get our guest on the line. You're listening to Jason and JV Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody to remind me when we get in about, I don't know, December, January, and I start complaining about the cold. Please remind me that right now I'm going to continue to complain about the heat.
Complain about the heat. You guys are going to have it easy tomorrow.
I just have had enough. I have sweat since, I think, June 1st, and I haven't stopped sweating since June 1st.
In areas you didn't even know you could
In
sweat
areas
from?
I didn't even know I had sweat glands, yes.
Well, it's fine. Okay, so Rhode Island tomorrow, it's going to be in the 90s. They already shut my kid's school down 3 hours early, and we're going to have a heat index of 104 degrees.
Just not right.
I love it, but I mean, I'll take this over the winter anytime.
Yeah, I probably will be saying that exact thing, like I said, January time. Anyway, tonight we've got a great show lined up for you. We've got Bruce Solheim, Dr. Bruce Solheim joining us. He's an author and a professor of history. His website is Bruce, and then his middle name, Olav, O-L-A-V, Solheim.com. He's got a new book out. It's called Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. We had him on the program just about a month ago. We had him on the program with another guest, so he was here for an hour, and it just was not enough time to cover the things we needed to cover with Bruce. So we're very, very happy and pleased to have him back. Bruce, welcome back to Beyond Reality Radio.
Well, thank you for having me back, Jason and JV.
Oh, thanks for coming on. We've been looking forward to this.
So tell us what it's been about a month, but a month for you, I'm certain isn't leisure time. What have you been up to?
Well, the class that I told you about, the paranormal personal history class, starts next week on the 11th of September, and it opened up, and in 2 days it filled up. We have 35 students in that class at Citrus College that I'm teaching, and 10 people on the waiting list. If we opened it up, I could probably get 100 people in there. It just shows you the level of interest that people have. They're just hungry for this stuff, wanting to understand it, have a forum to share their stories, and kind of have some kind of framework of understanding.
So if you had to give us a description of the class, I'm sure there's a course description. And I was a prospective student, and I was reading this. What would it tell me I was going to learn by taking the class?
Well, funny you should ask that. The class provides, like I said, it provides a forum for people who have had paranormal experiences or that are interested in learning more about them. And what we do is we go over a number of different things like, telepathy, telekinesis. We talk about apparitional experiences, demonic things, angelic things, and we also do some experiments, some kind of simple experiments in like remote viewing and things like that. And then we have guest speakers. One of them is going to be Dr. Dean Radin from IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which was started by astronaut Edgar Mitchell many years ago. Mm-hmm. And so that's what it'll happen. And also, very exciting thing is we're going to visit a paranormal location here locally. It's a steakhouse that's built on an old Pony Express stop from the research that I've done. And there have been a lot of experiences that the waiters and the wait staff there have I've asked them when I've gone there, and the owner has said we could come in there, and I'm going to bring all the students there, and I'm going to have something that I call a ghost lecture, where the spirits that I've been in touch with are going to try to make contact not only with me but with the students. So it's all very ambitious, very exciting, and I think the people are primed and ready to go.
So is that going to be a collaboration of you working with spirits that you've been in touch with in the past, and they're willing to do that, trying to make contact with others?
Yes, that's what they've told me. That's what they've told me, and I know it takes a great deal of effort on their part and a great deal of effort on my part, and we're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it a try, and so far they're game for it. And I have Masonic temple, and I don't think those guys, the Freemasons, built their temples just anywhere. I think they're very careful where they put those temples or their halls or whatever. And, of course, they do a lot of ritual magic there. So it's a very special place. And when I'm there, that's when I can be in touch with the spirits. In fact, I just had one just the other day. A friend of mine who'd passed, he's a Vietnam vet. He passed probably 5-6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now. And he came to me, and what I do is I just open it up to, I always say good and kind spirits, because I got to be careful, because there are some very bad things out there. And he came to me and told me he wanted to pass on a message to his family, which I did. And then I always ask them first when they contact me, what can I do for you? And he said, to pass on this message and tell everybody that he was fine. And then I said, well, what can I tell them so they know that it's you? And interestingly, he said, well, tell them that I'm on the beach and I'm catching a wave and I'm wearing my favorite, I love my favorite blue Hawaiian shirt. Now that's pretty specific.
Yeah.
So I was texting with his wife, his widow, today, and I mentioned that, and she said, "Oh my God, that was his favorite shirt. He had a blue Hawaiian shirt, and he loved the beach and loved surfing, and so that's the kind of thing that can happen when you open yourself up to that. But I have to say, it is quite exhausting. I do this walk maybe 5 times a week, and it can be rather exhausting. And I've had to learn how to turn it on and turn it off, because if I don't, I'll stay in that zone and I'll just be picking up all kinds of stuff. And especially since I started writing this book, I've been, as JV said last time, kind of a lightning rod for all this stuff throughout my life. But now that I've written this book and really opened myself and kind of trained myself with this walking meditation, it's like that lightning rod status is on. It could be on 24/7, I suppose, but I do have to turn it off so I can rest and relax a little.
I suppose that would mean, and we've only got about a minute here before we have to go to break, but I suppose that would mean that the 34 count, the 34 paranormal experiences you had, probably exploded by quite a few since you had that number documented.
Yes, I've written a second book. It should be published next year, called Timeless Deja Vu. And it's up to 26 more stories. Some of those are ones that I didn't include in the first one because I was really sticking my neck out with the first book. I didn't know how it would be received at the college. I thought maybe people would think, badly of me or whatever. But it's really been well received. So in the second book, I've really stuck my neck out and talked and written about things that I was a little bit more apprehensive about talking about in the first book. So. Yeah, it just keeps happening, and with the class, more things are going to come. I know.
Well,
so
of course,
it's just,
of course,
I think we're on a wave here.
Yeah, you're putting all those people together and focusing on the same thing. I think that's going to probably be very beneficial. But all right, well, it should be interesting.
So we're talking with Bruce Solheim about his book, Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. We're going to continue the conversation and get into some of these experiences that Bruce has had, and it runs the gamut of paranormal activity. It's very interesting, and we'll do that after the break.
And we'll be opening up phone lines later on at 844-687-7669. Again, toll free at 844-687-7669. You're listening to Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back to the show. I forgot to mention, because of our technical problems last night, we will be bringing Mike Clellan back to the program on another night. We were going to talk about his experiences with UFOs and owls. And we were just getting into it, too. We were just getting into it. Yeah. We'd asked him like 2 questions, and then everything just kind of fell apart from that point on. But we will bring him back on soon so we can have this conversation, because it's a very interesting one. The things that he connects between UFO and alien visitations and owls, it's pretty amazing and very, very compelling. Tonight, however, we're talking with Dr. Bruce Solheim. His book is called Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. His website is his name, including his middle name, BruceOlavSolheim.com. And we appreciate him being on the program. And Bruce, I did ask you, and you made reference to it the last time you were on the program. I asked you if you considered yourself to be a lightning rod for paranormal activity, because you have had your share of it. There are people that we meet that kind of fill that role, or that void, if you will. But the other thing I find very interesting, you were born in Seattle, and it seems as though the Pacific Northwest is also geographically kind of a lightning rod for paranormal activity. Have you seen that or heard that too?
I have heard that. I know there's a lot of serial killers up there too, but I hope that's a different thing, different show, I guess. But I know my parents are from Norway, but they settled. I can say that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Pacific Northwest is known for a lot of cryptid activity, also a lot of UFO activity. I'm not sure it has more than its share of spiritual or ghostly activity, but then there's also that Mel's Hole story, which I'm not even exactly sure where that is, but it's in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Bruce, but this what seems to be an endless hole that was reported on the radio show Coast to Coast some years back, and it's got a pretty fascinating story around it, but nobody can seem to find it now. But it does seem like that area has more than its share of stuff going on. Is it because it's so, in many ways, remote? Does that add to any of this?
It's very densely forested. If you don't have to go very far out of Seattle to get into some pretty dense forest and mountain areas and places where you would suspect you would find the Sasquatch or any kind of things like that going on. I mean, and it's very much filled with Native American experiences and lore. And I had an experience near Mount Adams where I was hiking, and Mount Adams, south of Seattle, south of Mount Rainier, approaching the border there with Oregon, and near Mount St. Helens, of course, the mountain that blew up in 1980. Anyway, we're hiking on Mount Adams, and we kind of got off the trail, and I went on this old animal trail, and I found this weird kind of carving, kind of first it looked like a tangled root, but then the more I looked at it, it looked like it had been fashioned somewhat a long time ago by somebody. And I picked it up and just, kind of put it in my pocket, got back down to the campsite, and that night I had a very strange vision and experience, and I think it was prompted by that artifact. I think it was a Native American artifact that I'd found, and I communicated with somebody named Leon, who said he was a seer and a shaman, a Native American shaman, and I write about it in the book. I call it Treetop Warriors, because what happened is then I saw all these Native Americans rise up out of the forest and just kind of walk along or float along the top of the treetops. And I heard drumming and they're chanting and everything. And it was clear as a bell. And I was telling my girlfriend at the time what was going on. She didn't hear any of it, and she thought I was nuts, but I did explain that to her. And then when we got back, it was a very profound experience. And when we got back home, I called up the Yakima Indian Reservation, the nearest Indian reservation, and I said, "Hey, I think I found this artifact." And the lady was quite bizarre. She said, "Where did you find it?" And I said, "Well, near Mount Adams." And she said, "Put it back." And I said, "Well, don't you want to, research it? And do you know a guy named Leon? And he's supposedly a Native American shaman. Is he part of the Yakima tribe?" She says, "We don't know a Leon. Put it back." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, maybe I could come and meet you." And she said, "Put it back." And then she hung up. It was a very bizarre experience, and I know that, and I do have Native American friends, and I have read a lot about it, and I know that they're very sensitive about these artifacts, and so I had nothing but bad luck when I had that thing, and I didn't get to put it back. I actually left it in a house that we were living in, and I hope that whoever found it hopefully realized what it was and did something with it, but I probably should have put it back, but I never went back to Mount Adams due to circumstances kind of beyond my control at that time. But I think the Northwest is filled with that kind of stuff. A lot of it, Native American stuff.
Well, what you just said a minute ago about your girlfriend at the time thinking you were nuts, mm-hmm. That's got to be right. a common situation, and especially I've dealt with it as a paranormal investigator, and a lot of people mm-hmm. do get that impression. And how do you handle that? I'm sure you've heard it from numerous people. They think you're crazy, or they think you're nuts being involved in this, or seeing what you right. see and claiming what you claim.
Yeah, well, it's something that and this is advice I get from my spirit friends too. They tell me don't waste your time trying to convince diehard skeptics, because you're wasting your breath. There are plenty of people who are open to this, who've had experiences, want a forum, and want people to listen to them and try to understand what's going on. So it's really a wasted effort. But I'm not
anything, because I'm not here for them. I'm trying to help out those in right. need who are requesting my help. And the main thing is, if skeptics could just work with investigators, they don't have to be believers, but as long as they were willing to meet each other in the middle and try to figure this out together, I think the field would only benefit.
Yeah, and that's where I think the fear factor comes in. Some people are skeptical because they are afraid. And there is stuff to be afraid of. I mean, there's not, I've had some very scary, very terrible experiences too. Not all of it's been rainbows and lollipops, and angelic stuff. So I understand that some of the skepticism might come from fear, and they just want to block it or just not acknowledge it at all. So I guess I don't begrudge them that.
Well, no, and I agree with you totally on that. A lot of that is based off their fear of, if they actually experience something, then they might have to acknowledge that there's something there, and they really don't want to.
Right. It's gonna rock their world.
So, Bruce,
sure.
let's walk this back just a little bit, because in case someone didn't hear our first discussion, in the course of all these paranormal experiences that you've had, it started quite early for you. Tell us how your first experience, at least the first one you remember, happened, what happened, and how it kicked this whole thing off for you.
Yeah, it was at age 4, and it was in northern Norway, on a very remote island, 200 miles above the Arctic Circle. And my parents, that was their first trip back to Norway. They immigrated in 1948. So in 1962, we all went back and lived with my grandmother on this remote island. Well, what happened was that I was playing outside. It was the wintertime, and a beautiful setting, but it's dark there in the wintertime and pretty cold. And I started to feel really sick, a high fever, body aches, and then all of a sudden I had trouble moving my head, moving my neck was stiff, my back and my muscles were starting to stiffen up, so I went home and I laid down in this little bed my grandmother had in the kitchen, and it just kept getting worse. And my mother and my grandmother and relatives came over, and they were all saying, "Oh my God, this is this is what happened when Uncle Sven got polio, and this is what happened when your eldest brother got sick and died the next day. And I was terrified, and my parents were terrified, my grandmother was terrified, and but I just kept getting sicker, and I couldn't even move, and I finally drifted off into sleep. And then sometime in the middle of the night, I awoke to a very bright light, a warm bright light, and the brightness was in the shape of, it was an angelic shape, what I would describe as an angelic shape. And all of a sudden, I had no more fear at all. I just knew everything was going to be okay, that I would be healed, that I would be okay and not sick. And I went back to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, and I was perfectly fine. And my grandmother and my mother came to me and said that I told them what happened. And they said, well, that was your guardian angel, and she'll be with you for the rest of your life. And that was my first experience at age 4.
Did that first experience open a door for you, do you believe?
I think it did. I think, like I said, I had the genetic predisposition to be open to this stuff, but I think that first experience, and children are sponges, they absorb all this stuff. And so I think it just imprinted on me that, what I already had in me, but it really did open the floodgates, I guess, if you will, because things just started happening pretty frequently, randomly, but fairly frequently after that.
Yeah, and opening the floodgates is a perfect way to describe that. We're going to get into more of those details when we come back from the break. We're talking with Dr. Bruce Solheim. His website includes his middle name, Bruce Olav, O-L-A-V, Solheim.com. His book is called Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. He's got other books to his credit as well, and you'll find all of them listed on his website.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. A lot more to come. You listen to Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio. In our next hour, we will open up the phone lines if you want to join our conversation and ask our guest, Dr. Bruce Solheim, any questions. It's 844-687-7669. We're talking about his experiences, many paranormal experiences. We frequently have people on the program that are considered, or at least we consider, to be lightning rods for paranormal activity, and Bruce Solheim is one of those folks. He's chronicled a lot of that activity in a book recently released called Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. You can find that on his website, also Amazon and other places. And Bruce, I have to ask, when you had your first paranormal experience, at least the first one you remember at age 4, and it was a bit of an angelic visitation, and then it started you down a lifelong series of these types of encounters. In retrospect, looking back at it, do you consider it a blessing or a curse?
I consider it more of a blessing when I have trouble sleeping at night because I have trouble turning it off. Sometimes it's a bit of a curse, but I think it's more of a blessing than a curse, especially now that I've finally had the courage to write the book and kind of come out of the paranormal closet, I guess, if you will. And not be afraid of my peers or the college or, anything. I see that it's necessary for people because I think, shows like you guys have and the TV show you guys had, these are really important things for people to realize that there's more than this, just the world that we live in right here. And I think it's important for them to not live in such fear of what is beyond. And so I feel like I have a special mission, like I have a mission to teach my students history. I have a mission now to share these experiences and make people feel comfortable enough to share their experiences and then pass it on down the line, and I hope classes like this that we're going to have at Citrus starting next week will spread. As far as I know, we're the only class that at a college in, a paranormal class in Southern California that I know about. So I see it as a mission. It's something good to be doing. So it's more of a blessing than a curse.
Well, I think that's really respectful because I'll be honest, that was the main reason that we finally agreed to do the show Ghost Hunters was because we wanted to bring, credibility to the field, but we also wanted to show people that it didn't have to always be scary, that it could be more interesting, it could be more intriguing. It didn't have to be a thing where, because Hollywood makes anything that deals with ghosts, unless it's the kids show, terrifying, and it's really not. It's more intriguing, and there's so much that we can learn from it.
Yes, I agree. Now there are terrifying aspects to it, but I think those things are, you pretty much, if you halfway know what's going on to begin with, you can avoid those situations. Like, for instance, we have in our neighborhood here, there's a house that I call the murder house, and I knew something was weird about it, and then I had a bad feeling about it. And then I found out that probably a man in his 50s who was living with his elderly mother, she died suddenly, and then he shot himself in that house. So it just has a really bad feeling. And people say, well, do you want to go and take a look? Because our other neighbors bought it. They said, you want to take a look at this house? And I said, I'm not going in there. I know right away that's not a place that I want to go. So I think you can avoid those really negative stuff. Sometimes you can't. Or sometimes you make a foolish mistake and you get yourself in a situation. But no, I think you're right. There's so much good, just like I said, this friend of mine who, I shared the experience of my communicating with her husband who's passed on. And so it's like a gift, and I don't see myself as being like a really special person. I just think it's like a gift, like other people have gifts. And the main job that we have is to share that with others and make their lives better.
Well, and the scary and the whole negative type entity thing is such a rarity that 99% of the people out there will never really come across something like that. Of course, unless they keep on trying to stick themselves in that predicament. But you don't
want to poke those things too much.
No, of course not.
We have less than a minute before we have to go to break again, Bruce. But at this point, give folks a list of where they can find your books.
You can go to my website, bruceolavsolheim.com, and all my books are on there with links to all the links go to Amazon, I guess. So Amazon is where you can find all the books, and just put in my name, Bruce Solheim, or Bruce Olav Solheim, and all the books will pop up. And that's the best way to do it. And I want to remember to tell you guys, to invite you guys to come to the class if you're ever out in this area, to come and visit. I think you'd get a kick out of it, and I know the students here would. I know you're way back on the East Coast, and we're on the West Coast, but.
Well, and we would love to, but 3,000 miles to head to school would really suck for us both.
I don't like going to school to begin with.
Exactly.
To do it
but no. I would take you up on that if we were a lot closer.
Yeah, and if we're out there at some point, maybe we can take him up on that, because we do get out there once in a while.
Absolutely, we do. All right, we're going to take a quick break. A lot more to come. You listen to Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Paranormal. That cannot be explained by scientific methods.
Told of a creature that was 6.5 to 7 feet tall.
The CIA ran secret mind control experiments.
It's a tale of a creature that's been seen by many, but believed by few.
And experts say there have been reported sightings of paranormal activity.
And there was this creature, and it ran down this hill.
They say something was flying over their house, and they have no idea what it was.
How the world's most powerful individuals are actually shape-shifting reptilians.
My scariest ghost hunting experience.
Jason and JV.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. Who want it now?
Beyond reality. Radio.
It's Wednesday on the West, Thursday on the East. Many of you are stuck somewhere in between. Welcome to Beyond Reality Radio with myself, Jason Hawes, and the always awesome J.V. Johnson.
We're having a great conversation with Dr. Bruce Solheim tonight. He's got a book that's called Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. It chronicles his lifelong encounters with the paranormal, 34 or more experiences, and they continue to affect him in his life as we speak. We're going to bring him back into the program in just a moment. Don't forget, tomorrow night we've got Rebecca Foster joining us for Readings with Rebecca. We do that the first Thursday of each month. It gives you an opportunity to get some psychic readings on air, but the phone lines will be busy. We have to call early and keep dialing in many cases.
Yeah, next week we got some great shows as well. We're going to be talking about the Final Words Project with Dr. Raymond Moody, talking about near-death experiences, shared death experiences, and so much more. And then Wednesday we'll be talking with Sarah Clancy, author, and we're going to be talking about the Black-Eyed Children. So make sure you tune in because it's going to be some great shows and very enlightening.
Yeah, great stuff coming up next week, so make sure you join us. We're going to open up our phone lines now if you want to get in on this conversation. The number's 844-687-7669. Again, our guest is Dr. Bruce Solheim. And Bruce, again, thanks for being with us. You were on about a month ago. We quickly learned, because we only had you on for an hour that time, we quickly learned as we started talking about your experiences that we needed much more than an hour. So we're very appreciative of you giving us the 2 hours to talk about this tonight.
Oh, this is great. I'm having a great time.
You know, one of the things that I noticed you said in the book, which really caught my eye, there's a quote. It said, it's not that you believe in ghosts, it's that they believe in me. So you have no choice. What does that mean?
Well, the fact that I have the experience, this idea of people believing in ghosts as opposed to having experienced them, and the belief comes from experience. I think that maybe I didn't, I was chosen, I think is what it was, through, like I said, through genetics, through this early experience at age 4, and with ghosts and every other paranormal thing that's happened to me. So I really don't have a choice. It's I can try to turn it off, but that doesn't work very well. I can't completely turn it off. Even if I wanted to.
Having been chosen, does that imply or does it mean that you have some kind of mission? Are you on some kind of mission for them, to use a pronoun that I'm not sure is appropriate?
Yeah, I would say it's the recognition of that mission. I've always thought that this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't know if I mentioned the first time I was on, but in 1980, I took a parapsychology class when I was a soldier in Germany, and I had a lot of interesting experiences in Germany. That's another place that's kind of a really interesting. But when they were having one of their arguments, the windows in the old classroom suddenly slammed shut. It was, and it frightened everybody. I thought it was hilarious. But anyway, I think that I mean, this is it's been a lifelong thing, and the things keep, these paranormal things keep happening. I've accepted it as a mission now that I've published the book and teaching the class, and it's not just something that's a sidelight. It's not just something that's a hobby. It's really becoming, my lifestyle. But it was that class that really, I think, really made me think even more about it and get into the reading and parapsychology, the theoretical stuff, and all that, and the research that was being done, which led me then to Dean Radin and all the research he does in all the psychic research. So I think it's been a lifetime coming, and now I finally realized that I'm not just here to teach history. I'm here to bring a message to people, to offer a forum for them, and to make them feel safe to explore these ideas and support the research that's going on.
Let's talk a bit about angels, because you described your first experience as being a bit angelic. What you saw took an angelic form, and you've had many angelic encounters since. What are angels? If you're experiencing them, you must have some insight as to what they are.
Well, they're very different from the spirits that I encounter, people that have passed on. That's a very different type of experience. And then, I guess what you would call a ghost. And then I've had residual ghost experiences too, where it's not communicating with me. It's just there, usually tied into a building or whatever where I was visiting. And I think angels are they're not human. They are an entity that is never been human, as far as I know. And I have the feeling that it's a very different type. I don't know how else to explain it other than pure light and warmth and energy, and they have a very positive power. So it's not just somebody communicating to me from the beyond, a person that has passed on. This is a very different type of entity. That's my impression. I'm not like an angel expert or whatever, but that's been my experience.
So have you had any encounters with what might be considered demonic forces that might be the counter to these angels?
Yes, and I think those are also not of a human origin. The scariest one was in Germany in 1979. And what was happening was that I had a feeling something was going on in the barracks that we lived in, and it was not good. They had us all housed in these old World War II Nazi barracks. I mean, some of the buildings still had swastikas on them, for God's sake. So it was bad karma to begin with, So there we were, 1979, midst of the Cold War. And I had this weird feeling that there was something strange going on in that building, like somebody was doing something wrong. And I just had that there was some kind of, black magic going on or demonic stuff. So, and sure enough, some guy, because I was, interested in this stuff, he started talking to me. And the next thing I knew, he was talking to me and my girlfriend. And he said, I dabble in this, and you should come to my room and see what I'm doing there. And I said, well, okay. I was a little bit apprehensive. And I went there. My girlfriend and I went there, and he was a full-blown, devil worshiper. Mm. And I said, okay, this makes sense. All these bad feelings I've had in this room, in these barracks. So he was very, very creepy, and we left very quick. And then I was very foolish. I was very young at the time. I was only 21 years old, and I thought, okay, I got to do something to counter this. So I went to the post library and I checked out a book on demonology to see if I could figure out what was going on. And then I went to the ceramics studio that they have. They have places for GIs to paint or draw or do ceramics. And I fashioned a demon head. And this is all very naive, and this is a good lesson in what not to do. But anyway, I was thinking, my girlfriend came in and she looked at it and she said, "What is that thing? You know, what do you have that for?" And I said, "Well, I made it because I thought maybe it would scare this this black magic guy away." And she said, "You realize what that is? It's a demon." I said, "Yeah, I know it's a demon. I here's a book and you can look it up what kind of demon it is." And she says, "This is very odd because in high school I fashioned a similar demon head that looked exactly like that one, and I had to throw it away because it started to connect with me." And I said, "Well, this one spoke to me." And she took it and she opened the window and she threw it out of the window from the third floor and into the dumpster. And that was the last I saw of it. And I'm glad she did, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had this connection and the ability to see and hear these things and connect to this, but I didn't know what I was doing. So that's just an example of what not to do. Never play around with stuff you don't understand. So yes, that was a very bad experience. And it was my own fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce,
I can only blame myself for that.
At this point in your life, do you seek out these encounters and these experiences?
Sometimes, well, I do on these walks that I take, the walking meditation. I use kind of a line from Uhura in Star Trek. I say, I'm opening up all hailing frequencies to all good and kind spirits. I make sure that I throw that part in there because I don't want any connection with any, demonic stuff or bad stuff. And I open it up, and from what I've learned from doing this is that there are plenty of people who've passed on who are just, and I don't want to make a bad pun, but dying to talk to me and have something heard and pass a message on. So it technically I could probably do this every day. Now, sometimes it's clearer than others. Some days, just like it's like radio interference or static or whatever. I know it's not the same thing because it's all more in the quantum realm rather than radio frequencies, but I just, say that sometimes it's like that. It's a little fuzzy and you can't really quite make it out. And other days it's clear as a bell. And oddly enough, I don't know if anybody else has this in their kind of mediumship stuff that they do, but I also see handwriting too.
Countering anything or having any experience if you head out of the house?
I can turn it off, and it really doesn't. If I don't take a walk, if I don't make an effort to do that, then I can pretty much turn it off. Other times, it kind of comes when if I'm not really thinking about it, it can happen when I'm not trying to do it on purpose. So that is basically what happened during my lifetime. Most of the time, I wasn't trying. It happened frequently, but randomly. But now I can kind of bring it on, and I'm not going to say control it. I'm not going to say 100% because I don't think anything's 100%. But I can, more likely than not, I can make some kind of connection with somebody. And usually, I have two spirit guides that are friends of mine who passed on, who I was very close to, who I encounter quite often.
But you need to be paying attention, or you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, because you don't. These demonic bad things usually happen when you're in a bad state, when you're at your lowest point, and you're not at your strongest. That's usually when those kinds of things can creep in, and then you have to really be on your guard.
Okay, we'll pick up our conversation. We've got to go to break here with Dr. Bruce Solheim on the other side of the break. We've got a lot more to talk about on Beyond Reality Radio.
You listen to Jason and JV, Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back to the program. It's Beyond Reality Radio. Our guest tonight, Dr. Bruce Solheim, and you need to check out his website. It's his name with his middle name included, bruceolavsolheim.com. He's got many books to his credit, including a paranormal book called Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. And Bruce, this is a particularly short segment. We've got a couple minutes here, but your other books are about completely different things, right? You've got a whole gamut of books that you've authored that have nothing to do with the paranormal.
Yeah, foreign policy, dealing with the Nordic region, women leaders in the world, world leaders that are women, a research book on that, and the Vietnam War book that I use as a textbook for my Vietnam War class, and also a U.S. history survey book called Making History. But they all have kind of especially the history book and the survey history book and the Vietnam book have the personal aspect to it, which is my special brand of history, is personal history.
We have just about a minute here. At what point did you decide to write a book based on your paranormal experiences?
When my friend Gene died, a good childhood friend of mine, also Norwegian American, grew up in Seattle with me. He died on the 14th of September 2016. And I decided at that point, I've been collecting these stories and wanting to tell these stories, but that was the final push. Because after he died, I had a vision of him, an encounter with his spirit, and he was able to communicate a lot of things to me, and that's where the title of the book comes from, because he convinced me that we are all timeless, that we really have nothing to fear, that we do live forever. And I said, well, I have to do this now. This is the tipping point. All this preparation, all these experiences, but that was the tipping point, was my friend Gene nudging me to do it.
We've got one more segment with Bruce, so don't go away. We still have more to talk about.
All right, you listen to Jason and JV on Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
Bruce Solheim. Visit his website at bruceolavsolheim.com. Check out his books, including Timeless, A Paranormal Personal History. Bruce, I want to talk about telekinesis and what would be considered, I guess, encounter-type paranormal activity. You've had precognition. You've had telekinesis. These are things that are much more, I guess, controversial in a way, but also they're much more mind-oriented. Tell us what you know about those particular topics.
Well, my experience with telekinesis was we were living in Germany. By this time, I had married my girlfriend. We were living in an apartment over a Gasthaus, as they would call it. It's like a bar with some rooms to rent above there, and we rented a kind of an apartment above there. And there were some big apartment buildings on the other side of like a green belt. And this is in Mannheim, West Germany, in 1980. And some weird things started happening. I had weird feelings in that house, and I woke up one night and I felt like someone was pulling my legs off, like pulling me off the bed. And I had these very strange feelings. And then this one night in particular, things started vibrating on our nightstand, just vibrating and actually falling off the nightstand as if it was an earthquake, but there wasn't an earthquake. It was very directional. It wasn't like the whole building or whatever. And I got up and I just happened to look outside, and we had a window that faced the greenbelt and the apartments on the other side. And I noticed a kind of a shadowy figure in the window, kind of halfway in the shadows, staring at me across the greenbelt. And it's like he had his arm up, like his finger up, like he was pointing towards me. And when I noticed him, he went back into the shadows, but he moved in a very strange way. It's almost as if he kind of hovered, backwards. And as soon as he went away, everything stopped vibrating. And that was a very, very frightening experience. And I was wondering, this guy was, whatever it was, whether it was a guy, whether it was some other kind of presence or whatever, was able to move things in our apartment. Was able to move things and directly move them. And it never happened again. But that was the one encounter that I've had with that type of using the mind to manipulate matter.
And you said it frightened you.
What's that?
You said it frightened you.
It was very frightening. I knew about telekinesis, and I had never really had any. That's not my strength. I think I could probably teach myself, I suppose, to have some kind of maybe minor effect. But it's my talents lie in other areas. I think they're my special gifts that I have. But this was definitely an experience where somebody was doing this. For what purpose? I don't know. I really don't know why they were doing it. My wife at the time was also very sensitive to these things, and she had the feeling that something very terrible had happened in that apartment. So maybe that was kind of a magnetic force there for whatever kind of stuff this guy was up to.
Have you ever had an experience that you would give anything to either relive or have again?
I've loved all the experiences I've had with my mother and father. That my mother's come to me, my father's come to me. They don't come as often as I would like, and I do try to connect with them, like I tried, but not as readily or as easily as with my spirit friends. My two friends that had passed away in the last few years. So I would like to have more of those, and the ones I have had have been just so wonderful, wonderful beyond words, and have been very healing for me, like trying to put into perspective all the things I did that made my parents' life kind of hard, and so I think it's been very cathartic. Those experiences have been very cathartic. And I think that's really the ones that I really look at, and even the ghost experiences, even the ones that like the one in New Hampshire, I think that I explained last time. I think I did anyway. The full apparitional experience. It was a little frightening, but it was still well worth it. I mean, I had sights, I had sounds. It was a really profound experience, and I wouldn't mind having one of those again.
Now,
I've had a couple of those in my life, but and I know what they are. So it is frightening, but it's not so frightening that it's just frightening in that it doesn't happen every day. So but I wouldn't mind having more of those just to learn more. Because we all need to learn more. I definitely need to learn more about all this stuff. So,
well, let me ask this: do you think communicating with these spirits is keeping them locked onto this side and not?
Justify this model that I've come up with that I think that when that we have these forks in the road of time where we split off, and in one fork we die, and another one we live on in another realm, another dimension, whatever. But our physical body does, but the spiritual part of us is constant and is timeless. The physical body comes and goes. We have different manifestations of it. I think eventually we get reincarnated as a new entity. I think at a certain point. I'm not exactly sure when that occurs, but that's kind of my theory that I have. But I've had some things to indicate that the spiritual thing is the spiritual part of us is a separate thing, and it was actually. And I know this sounds weird, but I accidentally ingested PCP when I was living in Minnesota. It was 1982, and PCP, used to be used as a horse tranquilizer, and I guess it's known by the street name of angel dust, right? It's not something that most people would want to ingest, and it was accidental because a friend of mine had laced some, it wasn't marijuana, I think it was hash or whatever, but anyway, it was stupid, and I was young, and I was going to try this hash that he had, and I didn't notice that it had these white streaks in it, and then when I did notice, I asked him what it was, and he said it was PCP. Well, it was an almost instant effect where I was separated, where my physical body was on the ground, and then I had a spiritual body that was hovering above it. Not too far above it, but I was actually both of them. I wasn't just one or the other. I was both of them, and it was the lesson was, there's a couple of lessons. There's a good lesson and a bad lesson. The bad lesson is that that this does happen. The good thing is that I know that this is true, that we do have a spiritual body and we have a physical body. The bad thing is you want to do it naturally. You don't want to do it with any kind of drugs or chemicals, and I would never recommend for anybody to do that. I know some people do, but I've never used, since that one time, I have never used any kind of illegal drug. So that was it was a pretty mind-blowing experience, but it did make it very clear that there is a separation. And my friend Gene and Maya have told me, one of the things Gene told me, and when I've communicated with him, is that in his spiritual life that he has now, he doesn't need to wear shoes, which I thought was really interesting. And of course, the spiritual body that I had after this experience, you're floating, so you don't need shoes.
Bruce,
so it made sense.
Since you've written the book and you've started to tell your stories, I'm sure you've had people coming to you to tell you their stories. And, we've had a lot of people talk about their stories on this program and in other places. Mm-hmm. And some of them are quite disturbed or frightened by those experiences. What kind of advice do you give people like that?
Well, I think if they affect you in a very, very negative way, then I think the advice I would give, you should share these stories, but you should share it in a safe environment. And then if they're very disturbing, like it's your daily life is disturbed by it, then you should, I think you should get some kind of, friendly counseling or somebody that can help you put them into perspective and you have to keep one foot in this realm as well. You can't you can't be totally into the other realms. And it reminds me of what did Joseph Campbell said, that I think Joseph Campbell said the psychotic drowns in the same waters in which the mystic swims with delight. This idea that if you don't keep at least one foot in this realm, that you run the risk of maybe getting very lost. So I'd recommend people that are being disturbed by these experiences to seek some type of counseling or professional help that would, not to say that they're nuts or crazy or anything. I don't think that. I just think they just need someone to help them put it into perspective and help them maintain a regular life in this realm and enjoy their spiritual life as well, to balance the two. It's all about balance.
Yeah, it is all about balance. You've got Timeless, a paranormal personal history out. You said you're working on the sequel to that, but when
speaking about these kind of things, I guess, in public, it may be even more terrifying, and could explain some of my reluctance. But I think it's the title, Timeless, that we are all timeless, so we really have nothing to fear. Not that we should squander the life that we have in this realm, but just that, to have no fear that we do live forever. And I'm absolutely convinced of that. And recently, my friends Gene and Maya, my spirit guides, have told me something interesting. We were talking about ghosts. I was talking about ghosts with them, and they said we are all ghosts, which I think is a very interesting concept.
Yeah. So what? In other words, we're ghosts to them, and they're ghosts to us.
Yeah, that all of us are ghosts. Our spirit is being encountered probably in people that have physical form in other dimensions, and they encounter our spirits and think that that we're the ghosts. So that's one interpretation that I have. A lot of times, what they tell me, what my spirit guides and the spirits tell me, is kind of difficult to grasp, and I really have to think about it. But that's what I was told recently that I'm trying to come to grips with. This idea that we are all ghosts.
And that's an interesting concept, because one of the theories I actually had come up with years ago, especially when it comes down to certain types of intelligent hauntings, when you're making contact with these things, a lot of times, not all of them, but there are these cases where the spirits seem to be living a normal day in their life as if it's still that same time. And it's as if there's an overlap in time, and somehow where it's thin enough.
Who came up with, the founders of quantum theory, this idea that even the ones that came up with it said nobody really understands it. But it is the reality. The 1/3 of our economy is based on quantum mechanics, but most people have no idea what it is.
Bruce, I'm sorry, we're just running out of time here. When did you say the follow-up to Timeless will be out?
Next year. I'm still writing it. The stories keep coming. It's up to about 26 new stories based on paranormal experiences. Some of them which were a little bit, I thought, on the edge and more bizarre, and I didn't want to include in the first one because I wanted to kind of test the waters. And so there's those, and then the things that keep on going. So it'll be next year, and it's called Timeless Deja Vu.
And one more time, people can get to your website, find your books, give all that information once more.
Yeah, my website is Bruce Olav Solheim. That's my middle name in the middle, O-L-A-V, BruceOlavSolheim.com. And there you can find out what I'm up to. And all of my books are listed on there, the plays that I've written, everything else, so all the stuff that I do, including Timeless. And when the new book comes out, it'll be on there too. But Timeless is available on Amazon and I think other bookstores as well.
Well, Bruce, it's been a pleasure talking with you tonight, and I look forward to having you on again some point in the future.
Okay, thank you, Jason and JV. I really enjoyed it. And do take me up on my offer someday to come visit the class. You could be guest speakers and share your experiences.
We would love that, actually.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could make it a road show seminar.
I want to go. I want to go to the steakhouse. That's. I want to go.
You want to go to steakhouse? Yeah, you want to see what's going on at that steakhouse. I do too. I can't wait.
I was thinking about a steak too, but it all works for me. Thanks so much, Bruce.
All right, you guys take care. I had a good time.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to take a break, come back and wrap things up. You're listening to Jason and JV Beyond Reality Radio. We'll be back after this.
So is the Eye of the Tiger, is that like a martial arts reference?
No, it's more of just the look in your eyes, the complete, where it's all about having that stare, that want, that drive.
Yeah, okay. That was my first question. Second question
it's what
is,
Creed had said to him. He said, you used to have that look, that stare, that glare in your eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Second question is, if there was to be a reunion of the actors from the movie Flashdance, minus the lead actress, what was her name? Jennifer Beal or Jennifer something?
No, not
Jessica Biel? No, somebody. Whatever.
No, I would have watched it a million times for Jessica Biel.
Well, whoever she,
especially pouring the water down.
Yeah, minus her. Would anybody go to that reunion?
I don't know.
The Flashdance people, was that? I mean, it was a kind of a an important movie at its time. It was very, very popular.
Music now.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
But I just don't know. I mean, I'm just curious about that.
It was a great movie of its time, though.
Yeah, no, it's a kind of a landmark movie. It kind of set some trends for a while there. So
yeah, it got you all involved.
Well, I started wearing leg warmers, and
you haven't stopped.
I haven't stopped.
I mean, it's been the last 20 years of your life.
Yeah, I know.
So, but that's going to pretty much do it for us tonight. Make sure you tune in tomorrow because again, we're going to have our friend Rebecca Foster on doing readings with Rebecca. The phone number is 844-687-7669. Make sure you call early. We'll be opening up the phone lines when the show first starts because they fill up quickly. So if you're looking for a reading, tomorrow night is your night to have that done. But that's going to pretty much do it for us. You're listening to Jason and JV Beyond Reality Radio. We'll catch you tomorrow.
But I sure know where I've been. Hanging on the promises and songs of yesterday. And I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. Here I go again. Here I go again.
Okay, Doug, you let chat get completely out of control tonight. I didn't even see you attempt to stop that snowball from rolling down the hill. In fact, I think you were pushing it down the hill, Doug. That's what I saw. Let's see what you guys think. I know, Toa, you already bought this book from when Bruce was on last time. Have you had a chance to read it yet? Doug, you've let the wrench power go to your head completely. You read it, Toa, or you started to read it, or and what would you think? Oh, some of it. What do you think? Pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. There's too much lag between what I say and what comes back to have that kind of conversation. Anyway, tomorrow night, Readings with Rebecca. It's going to be crazy. Page 50. What, would you read it for 10 minutes? Too busy? I'm going to get the shirt, Toei. If you don't watch it, it's right there. I'm going to get it. Boy. Everybody's pointing fingers. Slick. Everybody's saying, they did it. You did it. Slick over here. Anyway, yeah, tomorrow night's Readings with Rebecca. We will have busy phone lines, but if you want to get in on the phone calls, I will let you know in this chat early when I open up the phone lines. Well, it'll be pretty much immediately. So what I'll actually do is I will open up the phone lines at the very beginning of the show, like right at midnight before the show even starts. And you in this chat know that, and if you want to call, you can get in first. So there you go. That's about it. It's time to go warm up a pizza or something. Maybe take a walk. How does she do the readings? Well, she's a psychic. You're going to have to ask her, Steph. I don't know. If I knew I could do the readings, we wouldn't need her, would we? Just kidding. What's that, Slick? Yeah. Yeah. That's right, I do. Yes. When you see the I think you all get notifications when the YouTube live stream goes live, and I usually do that about 5 of 12. When I do that, I will open up the phone lines, and you guys will know that, and you can call first. That is real wit, Toei. It is real wit. And sass. It's both. I'm sassy and witty all at the same time. Look at you all. Who's on whose side here? Anyway, all right, that's going to do it for me. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for being here. Sorry about the catastrophe last night. Not our fault, though. Blame Spectrum, or I think they're a subdivision of Comcast. Is it Comcast or Charter? Or are they all the same thing? Who knows? But it was their fault. Yes, silky smooth lips. Keep them soft with my Carmex. And I'm inspired by my Hula Girl. Actually, I have two. Sacco brought this one. Good night, everybody. Love you all. Take care.